in the long term, you're going to have a lot more issues versus if you just took a little bit extra time in the beginning to pre-treat that patient. There's a huge difference in outcome. And I hope that makes
Yeah.
sense. It made sense in my head, but
Mhm.
it's just a matter of doing the work.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Cam Hemphill here, your host for Medical Millionaire. Hey, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to tune into the podcast. Our goal is to give incredible value and insight for practice owners. So if you're thinking about getting into this amazing world of aesthetics, you're looking to take your practice to the next level, every single one of these episodes that we create, they are 100% designed for you and to help take your practice to the next level. I have an incredible guest on today, guys. She has been in aesthetics for 17 years. She's seen a lot of practices thrive and practices not thrive. She was a COO at a multi-location practice. She developed aesthetics inside of a derm practice and took that to the next level. She has worked with Allergan, one of the most well-respected brands in our specialty. I want to welcome Dani Naughton to the show. She's with Aesthetics Elevated Consulting, and she helps practice owners grow and thrive. Dani, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Cam, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
We are going to get into some amazing stuff about fundamentals, basics, running your practice, and in controlled chaos, I guess, if you will. But before we dive in, give us more of your story, your background, and then I'll start to get into what we're truly going to unpack in this conversation.
Sure. So, the foundations. The foundation of where I come from. Whenever I was a wee kid, I went into the military. So I have 4 years experience in the good old Navy. And then to be honest, a lot of my structure, a lot of my respect for foundation, basics, protocols, keeping things simple, that's where it comes from because that's when it was drilled into my head at such a young age. It has nothing to do with the military, but when I got out, I went straight into aesthetics. I have always had a passion for wanting to help people. I've always wanted to be seen as an individual that people felt comfortable coming to and bringing their problems to. And who doesn't want to have the honor to make somebody to feel more beautiful? I mean, that's a lot of power that we have. And it's a pretty incredible feeling. Going into aesthetics, I've done treatment room as an esthetician, been an esthetician for 17 years. I had the privilege of working at, as you already stated, a dermatology office and kind of starting the esthetician groove there. And then going from there, I went to Allergan. We all are very well aware of Allergan, what they have to offer, but I represented Skin Medica and Diamond Glow when I was there. And then I went to San Diego and I was able to be a few different positions, but my most prized kind of would be a COO at a multi-level or a multi-location practice. And from there, I just kind of decided I really want to be able to dive deeper with other businesses, kind of like on my own terms, obviously, but I really wanted to focus in on basics with other businesses. So I wanted to create Elevated Aesthetics Consulting and to be able to partner with med spas and see where challenges lie, see where we can just kind of go in, whether we're restarting things or just kind of making sure things stay nice and smooth.
I appreciate it more than I can say. The fact that you have this amazing background, this career, the military fundamentals of discipline, of controlled chaos, of foundational approach, it brings in a completely different mindset. That's got to be from your core. And I know that you've probably put that into your consulting business, which is amazing. And then backing that up by how long you've been in the industry and what you've seen and what there's certain, like being in the industry as long as you have, you know what to do and what not to do. And maybe not everything, right? But it takes a lot to run a very successful practice. And especially in today's market where there's competition everywhere, where there's a tremendous amount of demand, but there's really there's not a whole lot of supply of injectors, right? Like there is a shortage of injectors actually. And I think a lot of people think that it's a saturated industry. I tend to think very differently based upon the data that I've seen. And I think that the demand is only going to get much larger. And what the reason why I bring that up is because as this market continues to grow, Dani, and as the demand continues to increase, the wellness side, the aesthetic side, biohacking, right? All of this, like everything's kind of coming together. When I zoom out, everything's kind of coming together under one rooftop, if you will. In fact, I was just at a really cool medical aesthetics practice in Miami, and this guy had a state of the art spa on the first level. Like it was red light therapy, cold plunge, massage, IV drip. Second floor was med spa, peptides, wellness, biohacking. And then the third floor was like hanging out and almost like an event area. It was really, really cool practice. And the reason I bring that up is because I want people to see that everything's coming together, which is going to create more chaos. Okay. Like it doesn't necessarily mean like the new laser, the GLP-1s, like the new peptide, just bringing them into the practice is the solution, because it can create more chaos. Right. So what we're going to get into today, guys, and she is the woman to answer these questions for us. She has the background and knowledge to help us interpret how to put ourselves in position for success. Is we're going to talk about a clear understanding of how to calculate true cost of goods, like including labor. Labor is this is a real thing. This is a cost. You guys do sell time. You sell time. We're going to talk about real world insights on how like there's waste in the treatment room, right? And how it's like there's some silent killing in your margins. There's waste in the treatment room, right? Utilization rates, capacity, whatever, however you guys want to like look at that, even to the inventory levels. She's going to share with us some actionable systems and operational fundamentals you need to scale profitably. Who doesn't want to scale profitably? We all want to scale. I always hear it all the time. I want to scale. I want to grow by 20%, 30%. We also want to make a profit. Like these practices, they trade on EBITDA, they trade on profit. And also really a mind shift, like a total mindset shift in the sense of how to run your practice like a CEO instead of a clinician. Dani has the background, she has the experience, she has the understanding. And what I want to ask you, Dani, is most owners, they focus on like marketing, top line revenue growth. But from your perspective, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see happening inside the treatment room that silently destroy profitability?
Whew, we're just going in heavy with this one. So we're just going to rip off the Band-Aid. Let's let me just start by saying I'm definitely not here to say that there's no value in marketing, there's no value in all of these great technologies that the industry has to offer. What I'm definitely here to say is that if you don't have the basic structure for a business set in place prior to bringing those things on, there is a very high chance that it's not going to be as successful as one, it was sold to you as, or two, that you're expecting. So those are the biggest things. People buy devices, they do, purchase into marketing companies. You have to understand why. Why are you buying into this? Why is the staff buying into this? Kind of answering, going all over the place here, but it's such a broad question. And the simplicity is you need to know the basics with it. I want to touch on staff, for instance. There's so many practices that I have gone into. I've been able to partner with them, and they're telling me of all these new devices they want to bring on or new retail products they want to bring on. And I'm like, great. How does your staff feel about this? I don't know. I haven't told them. They don't communicate with the staff, right? So the
Hmm.
staff
Hmm.
needs to be on board. More than likely, the staff is the one that is going in and selling this product to the patients. Consumers are going to know when they're being educated passionately and when they're being sold a used car. And you've got to have the buy-in from the staff, and you need to be able to implement scripts. You need to be able to implement protocols on how you want everything being discussed, pricing structures. So I kind of would say communicating with the office. That
Hmm.
would be the first thing that my mind would go to. Other things, obviously, you have pricing. You have to take with consideration cost of your labor. You kind of mentioned it earlier. Cost of your labor, a lot of people, they don't look into when they're pricing out goods. They completely forget about the front desk. They completely forget about, their injector or their esthetician, whomever is performing the service. And that's crazy to me because we all know that salary, that's the biggest cost within the office. How is it so easy to forget about it? And I think it's just because it's one of those mundane things that it is what it is. So we just tend to forget about it. But you just need to implement that cost and keep it in mind whenever you're charging that service.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, like, look, I'm a marketer myself, and work with thousands of practices for many years. And I've always said, the most successful practices are truly the best marketers, and I believe that because of it being a cash based environment, a cash based system, a cash based ecosystem, if you will. Insurance isn't running out of the woodworks to assist you. You have to be a great marketer. But where I see complete, like, in alignment with you, is I see people spending on marketing incorrectly, and I see them spending on marketing inefficiently, and also before they have their systems and processes in place,
Yes.
right? Where it's like, okay, we're going to buy this laser. We're going to buy this piece of equipment. We're going to go in this new service category and we're going to start marketing it. Great. That all sounds wonderful. Obviously, if you buy a laser, make sure to market it. You need to have patients come in the door. But more importantly, have a plan before you acquire the laser. Have a
Yes.
plan before you actually just say, yes, we're going to buy our laser. The patients are going to come. The staff is going to know what to do because they're great staff. And I see it all the time. I see, like, a practice owner will go to a show and they'll get pitched a laser. And I'm not saying like practice, like lasers are bad for practices. I'm just saying, like, you guys get it. Have a plan and have a system in place. Like, maybe survey your patient base, right? Maybe have a conversation with your staff and say, do you think that this would bolt on and be effective for the patients that we're seeing? You should survey the staff and survey your patients, and then come up with your acquisition of what product you're going to acquire, and then have a marketing strategy. And then when you do have a marketing strategy, please, 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 please have some sort of a system where you can convert the patients into long-term clients. So I completely agree. So building on that, you talked a little bit about the labor and cost of goods. I want to build on that just a minute. So walk us through how labor should be factored into cost of goods, because what I see is a lot of practices, they can get that wrong. They can get that wrong on how, because I look at it as like, you guys sell time. If you're a practice owner, you sell time. Like, that's what you sell. We buy, as a patient, we buy future confidence, right? We buy the future of feeling better and looking better. We buy hope, right? We truly do. But there's a cost with that, and there's a time cost. So, what are the consequences if they get that wrong and they don't factor that into their cost of goods, Dani?
Love that. So I actually have some experience with that. There is an office that immediately comes to mind when I'm looking over at their numbers and just kind of looking at profit margins overall based on a couple of services. Let's just say hypothetically for this scenario, $75. $75 of the injector's pay was not being taken into consideration. Well, if that particular injector saw, four patients that day, that's $300 already that is being lost by the office because they didn't take that into consideration. And to create even more of a snowball effect, let's go a little bit deeper, right? When you're making other adjustments to those numbers, whether it's, obviously everybody's dealing with increased cost of goods, with needles, gloves, gauze, things of that's being adjusted, but you've still forgotten the labor. And okay, let's make it a little spicier. It's not just the labor of the injector, but again, also you have a front desk, you have other people in the office on top of even the overhead that you have to make sure you're taking into consideration. So it's just money that essentially it adds to that chaos. You think that you're looking at the books, as an owner, and you're like, it looks like we're busy. It looks like we're making money, but I just don't understand why. And you could have the best injector in town, you can have the best laser, the best products in town, but if the math just isn't adding up and you have kind of something is just off in those basic protocols and those basic Excel spreadsheets or whatever somebody does, QuickBooks to calculate, you're going to be off. So you have to dig deeper and understand what's going on here.
So if I hear you correctly, it's basically saying a lot of practices will look at, okay, I have a net new booking. A new booking comes in, patient spends $1,000. And let's just take the neurotoxin example. Let's say my cost of goods on that for the actual product cost, let's just use 50% margin. It's $500. You're saying that most practices will look at that as a $500 profit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really, what they should also be factoring in is the time associated to administer that appointment, from answering the phone to booking the appointment to the person conducting the treatment. Here's one that you brought up that I thought was actually really interesting and that I haven't actually associated with, like not just the tips and the needles, the gloves and like the other, like the gauze, like stuff like that, the cotton balls. I don't know, but those are costs as well. Where do they go on the P&L?
Is going to be part of your supplies. Anywhere
Yeah.
between
Okay.
3 and 5% of it, it's probably going to be within the supplies there. And kind of to your point, it's those are kind of like those little ones that just eat at people and eat at people, and you just don't realize. So again, taking things back down, keeping it simple, you just need to know and understand that whenever this injector is in the room, on average, they're going to go through this many needles. They're going to go through this many pieces of gauze. And I know it sounds super tedious, and some people might think, well, that's micromanaging, that's this and that. No, that's
Yeah.
running a business.
Yeah.
That it's running a business. You need to know what money is being put out before you even think that you're making money. So a lot of I've received my own Botox before, and the injector would take a big old piece of gauze, like multiple layers, just to put on my face. And I'm like, oh, I'm okay. Just use one. You can just use one, save your costs. But it's simple
You don't
things
have
like
to
that.
use all that.
Yeah, it doesn't grow on trees, unfortunately. And when we make that happen, let me know.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think that there's a lot of ways that you can win in the margins. And I think like, there's an old saying when pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered in a way. And if you start to run like this operation, this factory, if you will, where you have patients coming in, the practice starts to grow. You have staff that's handling the front desk. You have staff that is doing procedures for you, right? You have your provider headcount goes high. Then, as you grow, your expenses go up. That's obviously the case. But you can start to lose sight of where your true expenses are going, and you could be overspending on supplies. You could have people be wasting on supplies, and like so it's like going back to winning the margins. Like you guys should really have a good threshold on exactly what the supply cost is per treatment.
Yes.
What does it cost to actually administer that treatment? And I'm really going to lean on this and say this is winning in the margins. That's what it is.
Yes.
These are the hidden costs. These are the silent costs. And when you're running a factory, I'm going to call it a factory, that is this revolving door, high velocity, medical aesthetics practice that is busy. Let's take it. You definitely have costs and expenses that are hidden because you're not paying attention. You're not paying attention. And I'm not saying it's like, to the listener, guys, I'm not saying it's you, it's you, it's you. What I'm saying is like, we're all guilty of it. Me as a business owner, including like, you start to grow a business and you run it differently when you start to grow because you start to care less, because you're like, shoot, I brought in 500 grand last month. I brought in $1 million last month. But every single cost factor, it's about running with efficiency. And when you want to put yourself in a position to potentially even exit your practice, sell your practice, I don't know. I'm definitely not here to say everybody needs to sell their practice. I don't care what you guys do. It's up to you. I think that there's always an expiration date, but if it's me, I think it's time to like, maybe pull yourself out of the day-to-day operations for a minute and say, what is our supply cost? How much does it cost to actually administer this injection? How much does it really cost to us to administer this microneedling treatment? I'm really glad you brought that up. I've actually haven't looked at it through that lens before.
Hmm.
And that's very impactful. I mean, maybe you can help me out with that. If you are a practice that's doing 5 million in annual bookings, what should the typical supply costs be? And because that becomes material when you start talking about 3 to 5%. I think you kind of had that out there. What
Yes.
should that look like, Danny?
So it depends what service is being performed, obviously. For instance, we can be as much as like some facials out there. Your cost for that service can be anywhere between 25 and $60 per treatment. Your typical neurotoxin appointment is going to be anywhere between $5 and $10. But even just saying something like that, $5 or $10, ooh, that's a big difference. Again, that $5, it adds up, and those are just things, it just adds up. That's money that can be used on marketing. That's money that can be used on training your staff. It's money that can be used on hiring an additional body in office to perform services to make you more money. So I know it sounds simple, but if it was so simple, more people would be more focused on it. And it's just, those are things that aren't focused on. And I want to touch on something else, kind of like another silent killer, we'll call it. It's time. Time is our most valuable resource that we don't get back. I wanted to mention, Botox appointments, for instance. They're usually like in and out from what I've seen. 15-minute appointments, I've seen some offices, other offices at 45 minutes. I totally understand with the industry. I am huge into patient experience and just making sure that your unique offering, how it's going to differentiate you from
Hmm.
other offices. I know you want to make it special for people. But if you look at your average when the patient checked in and when they checked out for a 45-minute appointment, if on average that provider is only spending about 15-20 minutes with them, that is 2 appointments within that time period that you could have achieved.
Mm.
You've got to make sure that you're aware how much time is really needed for the services being performed. Um, again, I'm not here to say an office should do 15 minutes or 45 minutes, but just knowing an average time that your patient is in there with the provider, I think that really, again, that pays off. And these are all things that don't cost offices anything. These are things that they can just look at. You just kind of mentioned it with, when you start making profit and making money and you're feeling good, you tend to forget again about the basics. You always need to look inward and see where you can do better, what's going on, where are inefficiencies.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, and that is a very different perspective than what I'm hearing in today's market, actually. Just to hone back on the $5 to $10 to administer a treatment on the supply side of the Botox. This is outside the cost of goods,
That is correct.
right? So we're not talking about time. We're not talking about cost of goods. We are talking about supplies. Okay, let's just go up to $10.
That's
Now,
correct.
let's just say you have a practice that has 3 providers. Let's just say their utilization rate is max capacity, 100%. And what that means is if you open up, 8 hours a day, you got 3 providers. That's 8 times 3. That's 24. Let's just say that you're doing, how many treatments should we say? Let's just say you are doing 2 treatments per hour,
Yep. Let's keep the math basic.
right? So what is that? Is that 40? That's 44 treatments in a day. Am I like let's just take $10, 3 providers, max capacity, 8 hours. That's 24 hours, 2 appointments per hour. Yeah, that's 44 treatments, right? That's what it is. 44 treatments. Now let's take that $10. What's 44 times 10? It's
440.
$500, right?
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's $440. It's $500. Like, it's $440. It's $500. That's one day of supplies. Now, and this is back to what I was saying, winning the margins. Like, how can you control that environment? What if you're able to break that down to $5? And guys, I may be talking so granular for you right now that you're like, geez, dude, can you guys get on with it? Can you like, but what I want to say is this kind of goes back to like the fundamentals of saving cash, right? Remember when we were all young and we were like, hey, I want to start saving money. And in your mind, you're like, well, I don't make enough money to save any money that's really impactful. Well, start by saving $20 and start by saving $100 and start by saving $1,000. Like it's about the mindset and the understanding that everything has a cost and you have to start somewhere, right? And I can go back to me, like when I was in my early 20s, I was terrible at saving, terrible, right? And because I always thought in my mind, well, I'm not making enough to actually save enough, and my expenses kind of like, and my income is just, it's just, I kind of like spending every paycheck. Basically, I live in paycheck to paycheck. I don't really have enough money to save. And it took a while for me to like, I read a lot of financial books and studied a lot of entrepreneurs. And it started with a mindset of like, dude, saving small actually over time and compounding that, that's where you win. That's where you win.
Yes.
There's so many ways to win. So if you have this $10 and it's costing you this 500 bucks a day, well, how many days a week are you open? Let's take seven.
Yeah.
7 times 5, that's $3,500, right? 3,500 bucks. Now let's like compound that over the course of a year, right? It's 7 grand every 2 weeks. It's $14,000 a month, 14 times 12. I mean, shoot, this is like 180 grand in supplies. This is crazy. Now you're making great money, you're making great profit and all that stuff. I get it. But if you're able to cut that down into half,
Yes.
now you have a massive marketing budget
Yes.
just on looking at your supply cost.
Correct.
Massive marketing budget, the ability to hire another provider. I don't know, guys, but what I'm saying and what she's saying is there is a lot of ways to win in the margins and get back to the basics, get back to the fundamentals, and really look at your expenses because practices trade on EBITDA. They do not trade on top line revenue, and you need to run them efficiently, even if you're not going to sell. I'll say it again, like even if you're not going to sell. So the other thing you brought up, Dani, is the time. So you're saying, hey, how long does it actually take you to administer the treatment? And what you're saying is some of these consults can potentially become fat, if you will. They're too long of a consult. And you could be doing more, you could be seeing more patients, more frequency could be taking place, more velocity could be taking place if you actually not only looked at how much money your providers are making the practice per hour, but how long are they actually conducting the treatment in that time period? And
Yes.
maybe your providers could be doing 2 treatments or 3 treatments. It's a very interesting idea outside of like long consultation, like treatment plan, ongoing, those types of things. But I think there's something to really look at there. That's interesting perspective.
It's just really, it boils down to making sure you have an understanding of what's really taking place at your practice. It's not
Hmm.
stating that people have, they're going against protocol or anything of that nature. It's just knowing where can you create more efficiencies. Should somebody else be performing the consultation where they discuss pricing? Or does your practice prefer the provider to be the one that discuss pricing? It's just, again, consistency. I always, when I think consistency, I think about Starbucks. No matter where you go in the world, your cup of coffee, no matter what you order, it should taste the same every single time. So as an owner, you want to make sure and be able to have that same understanding of what's being offered in your office.
Yeah, what's interesting? You bring up Starbucks. I was actually literally working out in the sauna with. We were talking about Starbucks and how they make so much money. And one guy said that Starbucks is actually the third largest bank because of the gift cards that they sell and how they sell them. And I'm like, talk to me about that. And I'm just gonna like go totally off course here for a second, but this will come back home for you guys. They strategically sell these gift cards in increments of like $25, $50, and basically it gives you the ability to only buy like 1.5 cups or 2.5. So you always have money left over on these cards, always. And then there's always like a tremendous amount of cash just sitting in these cards, on these gift cards, and a lot of it goes unspent. And they're brilliant minds. These guys are financiers and very very well educated like individuals on why they came up with that plan. Right, is they knew that there was a potential to have this cash sit in this environment. Of course, you're able to spend it whenever, but a lot of times, they just buy another card, which I thought was interesting. And the reason why I bring it up again is like winning in the margins. They have figured out how to win in the margins for them. And I'm not saying that maybe that's the most ethical thing to do, right?
Right.
From what they are doing. But then another guy brought up, he said, that the cup of coffee, the actual cup itself costs more than the coffee to make. And I'm like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And he's like, yeah, but do you realize how much? I'm like, I don't know. Apparently all you guys know a lot about Starbucks. But yeah, like the majority of their costs are in the supplies. The majority of their costs. So talk about a company that has to be very diligent on supply costs, right? On controlling that cost, controlling that supply chain of the cost of the supply to administer the cup of coffee. And I hope this is coming back to you guys to understand that the time is very, very important when you're selling time. The supplies that you have that you're administering to have these type of treatments and give your patients the outcome, there's a true cost associated with everything. And marketing is absolutely critical. You have to have patients coming in the door. You have to have patients that are staying with you, but you have to control your costs. And, I wouldn't just look at your P&L and say, oh, here's the profit. Oh, here's the loss. Okay, cool. Yep. Looks like we made some money. Cool. Right on. There truly is a mechanical way to look at your financials. And it's your responsibility to really understand what that looks like and how to control your costs so you can scale with efficiency and effectiveness.
Absolutely.
So that being said, I want to pivot for just a second. We talked a little bit about, this chaos. I want to talk about like double bookings, rooms, running out of inventory, no shows, disorganized staff. What does that chaos actually cost, like from a business? Like on the financial side, we talked a lot bit about that, but what about on the emotional side?
It costs sanity. I know a lot of business owners, obviously, they're losing sleep at night. I know from being in the treatment room myself, nobody likes it whenever you're a no show or a cancellation. So now, if you're paying that employee, they're just sitting there twiddling their thumbs. Obviously, we all know that they should be maybe doing posts for social media or checking inventory so you don't have a shortage of inventory. But again, you have to have things implemented and set in place that when and if something happens, this is the next thing that should be done. So the business, I will say this, I don't know if you're aware of this, but on average, the small business within the aesthetics industry loses about $26,000 a year on cancellations and no shows. That's just the
Hmm.
average. I
Okay.
know that I've worked at a couple of places, and then also being on this side of things and partnering with, there are people that they have these cancellation policies and they're advertised, but they just don't implement them because they don't want to risk losing or upsetting the patient. From an empathy side, I understand, we don't want to lose that money, but
Hmm.
you have to ask yourself, is that the patient that you want to have on your team? If you have to
Yeah.
worry if they're going to go somewhere else, they're probably going to go somewhere else regardless. But if they respect you, your people's time, they're going to show up. And if they miss an appointment, they're going to understand that they need to pay for that.
I'm a big believer in that, especially if you're in the business of selling time. It's almost like, hey, like I'm a consultant. Hey, we're going to get on a consulting call. Yeah, there's a fee for that, right? There's a fee for that, and what you're paying for is expertise. What you're
Absolutely.
paying for is an experience. What you're paying for is someone's time, and that just needs to be set up front. Like that's the expectation that I think every practice should carry out. And I think to your point, maybe it has a lot to do with confidence within themselves or running the practice or just not having the belief, if you will, and maybe the worry outweighs the what if I agree with you. I think that consults should be charged for, and I think patients should be penalized if they don't show up. But I think you have there's a line there that you have to set the expectation up front.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. That way you're both going into it with the understanding of what's expected, and I think it keeps that professionalism on the same ground level, if you will.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, hey, like I'm a professional. I can't make it tomorrow. Maybe there's a window of when you can cancel and that's paid back or applied to the treatment. I don't know. I actually don't know what best practices are, but
There's actually quite a few options and kind of how you could present it because I think you hit the nail as far as why people maybe don't implement it is maybe a lack of confidence or just overall just a struggle risking to lose that patient. You can still deliver your policy to the patient regarding the cancellation policy. You can do that tastefully and you can make it not about the business but make it about the patient experience overall. So, you know, Cam, I really appreciate you being a client of the office. Unfortunately, because of this cancellation, we were unable to get another one of our patients in and take care of their services and their needs. So it's all about the delivery of the message instead of, oh, well, you wasted our time or oh, well, we had a staff member here. It's all in delivery. So there's things that you can obviously put it in your branding paperwork. You can, it's kind of tacky if it's pasted all over the place because then it makes people wonder, well, why are so many people canceling? Is this where I want to be? But it can also
Yeah.
be
Yeah, for sure.
in paperwork that the patient goes over whenever they're signing their other consent forms, that they just have an understanding. So delivery,
Yep.
everything is delivery.
Delivery, I mean, and guys, there's, great software programs out there that you can obviously utilize to help with online booking, help with expediting patients showing up, making sure that your no-show rates are increasing, text messages can go out, shoot, voice agents, automatic AI conversations are now taking place. Great tools out there that can kind of help streamline the process where, tech owners have found like, wow, there is a big percentage of revenue that is lost in the no-shows or the cancellations, if you will, or the rebookings, the reschedules. Right? There's a lot of silent cash that's gone out the door in that way as well. So I think like what I want to back her up on is implement a good system. Make sure that you have automation out there that does send out the text reminders that does, and not just like the day before, like like a couple of reminders. They can opt out if they want to. And then maybe in those reminders, there also is language that says, hey, if you don't cancel within a certain time period, like there's a cost associated with this. Or if you're going to book, like we do require a credit card. Shoot, I've gotten reservations at restaurants where they require a credit card. Tea times, actually, at the golf course, they require a credit card. Shoot, you know what? My country club here, Danny, if you don't give them a 48, I think this one's a little aggressive for a golf course, but if you don't give them a 48-hour notice, they'll charge you for the missed tea time. I think it's like $50.
Yeah,
And so, because those are tea times that they want to give to other people, right?
right.
It's the same thing like, hey, like if you're not going to show up, we have this provider that's here ready to service you. We're paying for them. You are, not making money coming here. So we might as well have this expectation that it just keeps it so professional and so clean. I completely understand why everybody should do it, and I think if you guys are not doing it, I think it's time to really look at that. I think that you should experiment with it. Maybe if you're not quite ready to full force roll it out, maybe you could experiment with it. Maybe you should survey your patients. I bet you would be surprised by what they come back with because the majority of them want to have the open time slot. The majority of them are like, yeah, you know what? I think that's a great idea because if the people that aren't really booking to really show up, maybe they should go to somewhere else
Yes.
and give me that spot.
Yes.
All
I
right, so
think,
I got one more for you.
yeah, what's up?
All right, what should now I'm thinking about, just like medical aesthetics owners here. What should they be doing from, day one, like day one to avoid costing mistakes? Let's say they're good. Let's say two personas, new practice owner. What should they do day one to avoid costly mistakes? And then I'll have you back it up by an existing one who feels stuck, who feels overwhelmed, who, like what are some of the changes they should prioritize to maybe turn things around? So let's take persona number one. What should they do if they're like opening up a practice? Like, because man, what a great opportunity to just get things right out of the gates.
I know that
And
would
then
be
number
great.
two, an existing. Yeah.
Okay. So, number one, you need to understand your why. Why are you in the industry? What are you trying to do within the industry? Are you there to just be as cheap as possible just to get as many bodies in the door? Or are you trying to be a luxurious brand and make a lifestyle brand of yourself? And that's going to be what differentiates you and other offices. So, knowing who you want to be and why you want to be that way before you plan anything else out, I think is very key because then you can just base everything from there. The next thing, I think it would be a little bit of role playing, kind of act like a client or think, even let's take it a step further. Think about some of your favorite times that you went to receive a service somewhere, whether it's an aesthetic service, whether you went to a nice restaurant, whether you went and made a purchase of clothing. What was it about that experience that made it wow? What was it? Write these things down. I think it's very important to write these things down because then once it's on paper, then you can visualize and see how are we going to implement that into our patient experience. Once you do that, do a step by step. I would strongly encourage people to do like step one when patient walks in, Stand at front desk, greet patient with authentic, genuine smile, offer them water, offer them an experience, start elevating things immediately. Then, before you even place any orders in your office, start writing things down, creating an Excel spreadsheet again, or I go to Excel because that's just very basic. Everybody has it. Cost of goods with everything, simplifying absolutely everything. And then you have to build on top of that. That way you don't have this snowball effect of, holy crap, I'm already 3 months in. I didn't write any employee handbook. I didn't write any protocols. I don't have any SOPs. I have no idea about my profit margins because all my friends and family just immediately came in and I immediately started treating them because I was so excited. Okay, that's wonderful. That's exciting. But you totally missed an opportunity really to build
Yeah.
yourself, set yourself up for success. So when your friends and family are dwindling off because you're no longer giving them a discount, then you're like, holy crap, am I making money? I don't know. Am I making money? So knowing your why, figuring out who you want to be to what you want to offer, figuring out your cost of goods immediately. That's also including your labor, your supply, how much time is required. Obviously, in the beginning, might take a little bit longer. And then once you start really honing in on your skill, you can shorten that time, but making sure that you're able to pivot with any changes as you learn through the process. No matter how established of a business you are, you should be able to do that. And baby steps, kind of just going from there.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. And if it's like a well-seasoned practice, right?
Yeah.
Let's take a well-seasoned practice, they've scaled, they've grown, they've spent the money on marketing correctly with revenue. They have a good P&L, they have a good structure, they have good staff, but maybe they feel overwhelmed. Maybe they are looking at the P&L, they're having the staff meetings, they're having the conversations, everything can seem to be going well, but there's almost like this stuck, this like stagnant mind. They're overwhelmed in a way because they've maybe grown too fast, or they've like hit a wall, right? They've hit a wall. Things are going well, right? Like things are going well, but they've almost hit a wall because they want to go to the next level, right? They want to either second location, more bookings, more staff. Maybe they want to just pull themselves out of the business. I want, you know what? I've been a provider for 10 years. I kind of want to just like go on vacation for a minute. What's some advice for them?
For your business to get that successful, everybody deserves a huge round of applause because that's definitely not easy and that's a lot of hard work, a lot of hours of sleep lost. So, huge congratulations already. But it's a matter again of before you can go in and immediately answer something like that, you need to know what's going on in your office. I would kind of shadow and see how the office is being ran to see where you can implement certain structures in there. You need to be able to make sure that you're recruiting new patients. You need to make sure that you're still retaining the patients. And how about those patients whenever they're in with the provider? Are they converting them over to other services? Make sure your
Hmm.
conversion. So there are still different things in there that can be looked at to make sure um, that you can grow. Is there a beauty bank? You have a loyalty program, things of those natures. That's very, very important to growth, to retainment, obviously. And then again, kind of like your last thing, everybody wants to still be able to have a life and go on vacation and go out and do things and make sure the office is being ran properly. Make sure everybody's doing things in line with how you want the brand to be represented.
Yeah.
So again, consistency across the board. Every provider is going to have their own personality. That's what's going to make them special. That's what's going to make your office special. Everyone needs to make sure they're pulling back that patient the same. They need to make sure that they're converting to other services to help with that. And that, especially this at the end of the day, whenever they're taking them back to the front desk, they're saying, let's get you back on the books. Let's get you pre-booked for your next appointment. Don't just send them on their way. Get them pre-booked, commit them to their next appointment so they're coming back in your office.
Yes, it's I'm glad you mentioned that, and congratulations to the practice owners that have gotten to that level. It's not easy. my gosh, I know what it's like being an entrepreneur and running it like 10,000 RPMs for as long as, as long as you can. I think there's a lot of providers out there that are doing that. They are running this practice like a internal factory where they have loyal patients. They love doing what they're doing. They love it. They love servicing others. They love seeing patients just get this overwhelming joy of confidence and boost and energy performance and all the great things. And that's special. That's very special. That's why I think that this industry is so amazing is you guys are helping people level up themselves. You're helping them get it, like they get re-inspired in a way, and you keep them inspired, which is so cool. But if you are running it like 110% utilization yourself and you're trying to grow your practice, it's really hard. You already are hitting a wall. You just haven't admitted it to yourself yet, right? You're hitting a wall and you are so overworked that you have no time to work on your practice. You have no time to work on your business because you are seeing so many patients. And hey, you're probably making great money. Like you're probably making great money. And but time is money. Your hands are valuable, and I think it's okay to delegate things. It's okay to hire staff and lower your take home pay for a minute to make sure that the practice can run by itself. Like that's my challenge is put yourself in a position to where your practice can run by itself. And I'm not saying that's what you have to do. I'm just saying like if you feel like you're hitting a wall, you can only run on these RPM levels for so long. And you need to take time for yourself for sure. And I think if you don't do that, the consequences are serious. I think you really need to look at saying, okay, I know I can delegate this to someone, but they're not going to do as good of a job as me. Even if they do 80% as well as you, it's a better position than you trying to wear every hat, doing everything, running at full capacity, and then patting yourself on the back like I'm super busy. Because there is other providers out there that definitely want to learn from you. You can bring under your wing, you can mentor them, kind of wear that other hat, build them up, help them run the practice. And, maybe you take a pay cut for a minute. I'm not sure, but as the practice continues to grow and you strengthen your brand, you'll find yourself that the practice actually will start to make more money for you than you make money for the practice.
Yep. Cam, I
And
have
I
a
think
perfect
that's
analogy for this.
go for it.
It just came to me. So thinking about the time in the treatment room whenever a patient with hyperpigmentation comes in and they want to receive a laser treatment. So that's going to be equivalent to that owner that just wants to come in and make a lot of money. Of course, as a provider, I can immediately take that money right then and just treat them. But if you don't pre-treat a patient who has hyperpigmentation, you're going to get rebound melasma. You're going to have post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. In the long term, you're going to have a lot more issues versus if you just took a little bit extra time in the beginning to pre-treat that patient. There's a huge difference in outcome. And I
Yeah.
hope that makes
Yeah.
sense. It made sense in my head, but
Hmm.
it's just a matter of doing the work up front so that at the end of the day, you're going to have the best outcome. And then that patient's going to be there for life, meaning your sanity is going to be there for life.
Yeah. If you keep doing, it's like they keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, and you can automate it or delegate it. Like it's time to delegate it
Yep,
because
absolutely.
I totally get it. It's you gotta buy your time back. That's what it is.
Yes,
So
you do.
Danny, I know that you're super busy. I am so thankful that you're able to join today and share all your knowledge, expertise, your guidance. If people want to find you, like where is the best place for us to go?
Yeah. So obviously, I have Instagram. My handle is Elevated Aesthetics Consulting. And then my website is www.elevatedaestheticsconsulting.com.
Gotcha. And on there, it looks like they can go in, they can contact you, they can reach out, they can drop you a DM, they can connect, do a consult.
Absolutely.
So, guys, strongly encourage you to reach out to her. She knows her stuff. Again, 17 years in the space, worked with practices, worked with Allergan. Like she's got a really impressive resume. I would you owe it to yourself. If you guys are not having conversations with people that have been in the industry for as long as Danny has, have a conversation. It's absolutely worth it because there is so many areas where you can win in the margins that I know that all of us are probably now questioning. And that's the purpose of all of the content here that we create, guys. My only ask is share the episode. If you found it valuable, share it. If you didn't, don't share it. But if you found it valuable, share it, and share it with your colleagues, share it with your staff, and then not only share it, but like take action from it. My entire purpose behind this thing is truly just to give back. That's it. It's all about just giving back and helping you guys get into a position to take your practice and your business and your skill set to the next levels. Dani, again, thank you so much for joining. I'll leave it at that, guys. Until next time, happy injecting.